Hey, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about The Wizard of Oz and whether this very, very old movie is actually an allegory for a move away from silver and gold as money to an exclusively gold standard. Hey, Molly here. Today we're going to talk about monetary policy and the movie The Wizard of Oz and whether or not this story, which was actually a book first, is really an allegory about the battle between silver as money and gold as money, which eventually turned into the gold standard around the year 1900. So I've seen the movie The Wizard of Oz many, many times. And I had no idea until a couple of years ago that it was a metaphor for some political issues that were going on at the time. So I'm just going to set the stage a little bit. Back in 1873, there was a congressional act called the Coinage Act of 1873 that essentially made silver difficult to convert into money. So prior to that, if you had a bunch of silver, you could take it to the mint and they would turn it into coins so you could pay for stuff. Same thing with gold. If you had gold, you could take it to the mint and they would convert it into a variety of different coins that were considered legal tender at the time. Well, this Coinage Act of 1873 made it difficult to convert silver. So it kind of screwed the silver owners and it paved the way for the gold standard, which came about 25 years later. Now, this was very controversial and is referred to by some as the crime of 1873 instead of just simply the Coinage Act. And that was because from my research, the way it looked at the time was that the kind of industrialist slash bankers slash Wall Street money people were very pro gold. And the Southern farmers and Midwestern farmers, sort of more rural people, kind of populist side of the country, they were pro silver. Silver was easier to find. It was very difficult to get gold. So it kind of seemed like if you were one of the people who had access to gold, which were the industrialists, you were kind of better off. So it created this political battle. And the election of 1896 was actually very heated about this particular topic. And one thing that ended up happening was a bunch of gold was found in Alaska, which sort of derailed the whole silver movement, and the gold bugs won the election and the gold standard returned in around 1900. So this book was written by Frank Baum in 1900 and became the movie that we've all, or most of us have seen. If you haven't seen the movie Wizard of Oz, you should see it. It's pretty remarkable, not only because it's a cool movie, but because it's really this interesting allegory for what was going on politically with money. Now, a couple details to know if you've not seen it in a long time and maybe you didn't know these things is that the movie was actually made in black and white and it was colored. That's why it starts out in black and white and the end is black and white. And the color is very vibrant, and it's because it was added, which back then that was done manually. I can't even imagine how long that would have taken. So there's a couple things I'm going to tell you, like what the characters and symbols represent. And one of the interesting things we'll start with are Dorothy's slippers. So we all know them as her ruby red slippers. However, in the book, they are silver and they were just colored ruby red in the movie, probably because it stood out as much more vibrant. So Dorothy represents sort of the average everyday American person, sort of your like good old, working class, in this case, probably Midwest Southerner, probably lived on a farm, your average everyday sort of populist type. The other characters, so the Scarecrow, who she befriends, represents sort of the collective group of the farmers. And remember, they are lacking a brain. So that is sort of one of the things that they need to get smart about this particular battle. And I am just sort of paraphrasing some things that I've read about this. These symbols, or who these characters represent, is subjective, and there might be some differing opinions on this. The Tin Man was believed to be representing the industrialist sort of faction of the country, and they lacked heart, right? The Tin Man needed a heart because it was very cold and brutal factory life back in the late 1800s. It was rough. The Cowardly Lion is believed to be William Jennings Bryan, who was the political opponent in the 1896 election, who ended up losing. And he was a pro-silver guy. He was supposed to be standing up for your sort of every average day working class people, and he ended up losing, and it's believed that he didn't have enough courage to really fight against the banking establishment. All right, the Munchkins are believed to be your droves of U.S. citizens. And remember, when Dorothy gets wrapped up in this hurricane cyclone thing, she lands and kills the Wicked Witch of the East, who is believed to be the factory owners who are keeping down all of these Munchkins who are representing the average everyday worker. So Dorothy's seen as this liberator, freeing everybody from this sort of tyrannical thing. Now, the cyclone itself is considered to be a metaphor for like the crazy political upheaval that is going on at the time, and that Dorothy kind of gets wrapped up in this cyclone and doesn't sort of really know what's going on and becomes sort of this unknowing character in this story where she's going to eventually, free these oppressed people. And it is a story, so it's not a perfect metaphor for any real person, I think, who did this. And the yellow brick road is the path of the gold standard. Like, it is not a coincidence or an accident. And it takes her to this land, Emerald City, colored green, believed to be probably Washington, D.C., where the money is being made, the greenback, the green US dollar. And the leader in Emerald City is the Wizard of Oz. And it's probably not a coincidence that Oz is the shorthand for ounce. And this refers to sort of the money system where gold is measured. So Dorothy and her new friends, who each are in need of something, travel down this yellow brick road to get to Emerald City to go and speak with this man, Oz. And one thing she finds out is that Oz is a fraud. And so she goes to Washington basically to find out, to go in search of a political leader who can help her, and to find out that it's really just kind of a scam. And he's using fear and all of these dramatic tactics to try to manipulate her and everyone else at the time. But once she sees the sort of man behind the curtain, the illusion is shattered, and she realizes that, first of all, no politician is going to save her, and that she actually has everything that she needs to save herself and her friends within her. So it's a pretty powerful movie, and it stands for, basic things like the guy who needs courage, he has it within himself already, that type of a thing. But when you look at it in the context of the monetary system and the battle that was going on, there was really a struggle between what was going to be money in the United States. And previous to the Coinage Act of 1873, we had kind of more of an asset-backed currency where there were multiple assets that be converted into money. And this is coming up now as we prepare, I believe, away from a fiat system where the money is not really backed by anything other than the US military and the faith and credit of the United States, towards a more fair and equitable system globally where multiple assets are considered money. And this looks like kind of the opposite of the Coinage Act of 1873, where instead of moving to a system where only one thing is money, we might see silver be money, and gold and diamonds and oil and a whole bunch of other things. There's also another funny random thing about the Wizard of Oz that one of the reasons I guess I have seen this so many times is there was this fun thing that we did in college, which you can do now, is if you get the Pink Floyd album, Dark Side of the Moon, you have to Google the directions, because like when the lion roars for the third time in the movie, you hit play. I used to do this on CD. I guess you could still just do it on, like, you got to download the whole album and have it on repeat. And it's remarkable how the songs kind of line up with what's going on in the movie. Now, I don't know if that's just a totally random coincidence. Apparently the band has been asked and they said no, it was not based on that at all, but it is pretty remarkable how it times up. So anyway, I just wanted to just explain a little bit about this neat side to the Wizard of Oz movie, how it's a parable for what was going on at the time politically in this, this fight over what is money is not a new thing. And back, in the late 1800s, it was a very heated political debate topic. Elections were based on it. There was a lot of stress and anxiety between different factions within the United States. And ultimately, the gold standard won. And it's funny because when we, here we are in 2023, kind of look back on the gold standard as sort of being the good era when, we had sound money. But back then, there was a lot of people opposed to it because they felt that it was unfair and it gave an advantage to the Wall Street banks. So it is kind of funny how perspective changes and how you interpret things change. And in this case, as we move back, hopefully to a more fair and equitable system, which was probably pre 1873, um, hopefully there'll be opportunities for everybody and we won't have only one simple form of money. So, all right, we'll see you in the next one.